Did you see what Kelvin Gastelum did over the weekend?
Absolutely, 100%. And I got to tell you, again, I was impressed with Vitor. As crazy as that sounds, a guy 40 years old, he went out on his shield. That's what I'm going to say about Vitor. But with that said, I'm not sure that's not the best 185-pounder in the world right now.
Yeah, or 170 in kg. I got no problem with you putting Vitor over. One, because I agree with you. I think he deserves it. You know, Vitor got clipped. He went down. He sprung his way back up to his feet. I mean, he went out there and he tried. And the other thing that I really do like about, when you build up the guy that lost is that's the only way you can understand and appreciate what KG did. We can't appreciate how good he is unless you understand his opponents. I remember when he beat Johnny Hendricks, which was really quite shocking in the MMA world. You know, right, Hendricks, the former champion. And people tried to say, oh, well, Hendricks is done, or Hendricks isn't paying attention anymore, Hendricks isn't as focused. I'm going, wait a minute. Hendricks is a straight-up killer, and all you're doing by putting down Hendricks is taking away from Kelvin. That was a great Johnny Hendricks. The reality was Kelvin is this good.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
Did you just name him KG, or is that something in the past?
No, I got nothing to do with that. He's known as KG.
Oh, I love it.
I think because Kelvin looks like Kevin and Gastelum's just hard to say. But yes, people call him KG. I get no credit for that.
I love it.
Yeah, so, KG goes out there and, not only does he beat Vitor, he does it in enemy territory. Not an easy thing to do. And the one thing about KG is he doesn't know anything about pressure. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't feel it. He doesn't observe it. He doesn't even know he was fighting, Vitor at home and that should have put pressure on him. And then the other thing, though, and you really have to pay attention to this, is he beat Vitor at his own game. Kelvin is just a fighter. You couldn't say, well, this guy's a boxer, he's a wrestler, he's a jiu-jitsu ace. He's just an all-around fighter. And we've talked about that. What Luke and Tor told me on the set of The Ultimate Fighter. When I looked at KG and I said, man, I don't know what it is you're good at. I don't know. But I also don't know where your weaknesses are. And Luke and Tor came up to me afterwards and they said, you want to know what he's good at? He's good at fighting. And just truer words have never been spoken about an athlete. He's just good at fighting. So to finish this thought, though, he goes out there against Vitor, the fastest, most accurate, hardest hitting guy. If you were to put those three things together, he even trumps Anthony Johnson. When you talk about the speed, the accuracy, and the power in his hands, it's Vitor. And Kelvin goes out and just boxes him and boxes him up offensively and defensively. Vitor hit him with that head kick and came with a flurry. KG weathered it and just came back. I mean, offensively and defensively, he went in and beat a guy at his own game. But again, when you talk about the ice running through his veins, how calm he is out there, how he just goes out, how he believes in himself, it's really quite remarkable. Because I still don't know what he's good at.
That you can't teach that
but
calmness.
But he's good at fighting.
You cannot teach that calmness, that slow, methodical. I don't want to say slow because he's not slow, but boy, he looks as relaxed as a guy, going to church on Sunday. He is relaxed. Now listen.
I want to weigh in on this real fast because I like what you just said about his speed. Now, Joe Rogan was commenting how, that jab was lightning fast, and that is one thing about him. He's not overly fast. He is more methodical than he is fast. But every shot lands. He's got complete confidence. His defense is so solid. His defense is so underrated. Wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and in the striking realm. He's very hard to hit. He's very hard to take down. Nobody's come close to putting a submission on him, let alone finishing him. He's just so solid. And I like what you said about methodical. And he will turn it up. I can tell you this from sparring with him. He will go at a certain pace. And he'll let you go first. But if you up that pace, he's going to up it with you. And I've never seen an end in that, where you finally get him at the highest end of his spectrum and he can't go any higher. He just keeps upping it. The guy's a killer. And when you say he might be the best middleweight in the world, he might be. And I'll listen to all the arguments, Jacare and Weidman, I'll listen to them all. However, he's also might be the one best 170-pounder out there. And you can't make that argument for Weidman or Jacare. They couldn't get down to the weight class. Rockhold, whoever you want to throw in there. So he's a very special talent. And then when you look at his age, 25 years young, and just turned it, by the way, youngest champion in Ultimate Fighter history. And that was just yesterday. It was 2013, but that was just yesterday. We've watched him grow up. he is not in his prime. He won't be in his prime for another 3 to 4 years. And he might be the best fighter in the world. On his worst night, Joel, on his single worst performance he's ever had, he got a split decision against the current champion in Tyron Woodley. And I think that matters.
Listen, I was going to go somewhere else, but let's stay on that pace. So right now, first off, man, let's just quit talking about 170 pounds. There's no reason to talk about that. Okay, you're right. He's 25. He's 25 years old. Why does he want to put his body through what is a traumatic experience, and that's that weight cut? If you're that good, okay, if you are that good. In wrestling, Dakin Taylor had to run away from Burroughs. This guy doesn't have to run away from anybody. Now what the UFC has with this guy is they've got a headliner. They can, all the shows they need, this guy, he just headlined a show. He could come back and headline another show in 3 or 4 months. But here's your problem. At 185 pounds, you got Bisping and GSP. You got the champion GSP out there with the unsaid date. You got Weidman and Mousasi coming up. You got Jacare and Whitaker coming up. That leaves the number one guy, which is Romero, or Rockhold, Anderson, or Brunson in the top 10. So I guarantee the UFC wants to get this guy on a card and as soon as possible. I mean, he just ran through Vitor after running through Kennedy. Who do you put him with?
Yeah, 185. Who do you put him with? He called out Anderson. I got no problem with that. Be great for KG. Don't know that it'd be great for Anderson, so I don't know that there's a huge matchup potential there. But I like that he called him out. I like that his mind's working in that direction. He's starting to control his own destiny by saying who I want. I don't really know who you put him with. I want to say this. My mind's still stuck on his weight, so I agree with you that he should stay at 185. Make things more comfortable for himself. I will offer you, just as conversation, that he barely makes 185. He is one of those guys, much like Anthony Johnson, where it doesn't matter the weight class. He's going to make sure it's hard for him to make. So there is something about still having 170 in mind that I think helps keep him disciplined, helps keep him within striking range. If you did just straight move him to 185 where he used to be, he missed weight every single time. He had to come back for a second try every time, even if that meant just step back and drop his shorts and re-get on. So he is a guy that kind of struggles there. That's only, and I don't even know how much of a kryptonite that is because he does make it. It's just a struggle. So I can't point to any other fault that he could possibly have. And I do know some guys that weight also kept them on track discipline-wise. Some guys, they'd have to get an extra run at night to keep their weight down, but then that helped get them in better shape. They'd have to eat a little better, but then, that helped them feel better for training, which got him better. He might be one of those guys, but I can't think of anyone that can beat him, man.
Listen, man, when they came up with the ingredients to Coke and they got it right and somebody drank that Coke and everybody loved it, they didn't change the ingredients. Okay? This guy, based on his last 2 performances, needs to fight at 185 pounds, and he'll fight whoever they put him up against. I say listen a lot. I actually like it. Hey, I say Romero's the only guy going to take that fight. I don't think Rockhold will take that fight, and Romero is going to be out 7, 8, 9 months if he's sitting around waiting for a fight. I believe on that list, it's got to be Romero.
Here's the problem there. If you're a promoter and you're going to put that fight on, you're taking your number one contender in Romero with your number one prospect. And again, it's because of his age. More than anything else, the promoter has to look at who's got the shelf life. Okay, KG is 25. I got a decade left with this stud. Let's sell some tickets in the long term. If I'm the promoter, you're eliminating a player. If you put Romero versus KG, you're eliminating one of them. And they're both title contenders that can main event and headline an event. I wouldn't put that matchup. I don't think that matchup will even be offered to him. But I hear what you're saying about in the rankings it making sense. And KG's got no problem with it. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm glad you mentioned the rankings. So KG comes out and cuts a promo, kind of puts you over in the process, says, hey, a friend of mine's on a Legend ass-whipping tour, and I'm going to finish it. And he calls out Anderson, who is just a little bit in front of him in the rankings. And they asked him about that, and he's like, listen, these rankings don't make any sense anyway. If you're not going to use them, they don't make any sense. You can't have GSP come fight for the title at 185 pounds if he's never been in that weight class. So you're starting to hear this a lot about the rankings from the fighters. What do you do if you're in that room with these guys and they're complaining about the rankings?
Yeah, well, so I get the argument, and it's kind of bulletproof. And it is tough. First and foremost, it's a business. You got to put on the fights that the people want to see, which is a nice way of saying the fights that are going to bring in the most money. That's what I have to do. Secondly, I love the rankings because it creates controversy. Anytime you put a number next to a guy's name, and people say, I don't care about the rankings. You never meet a guy that's ranked number one that says that. Guys always care about the rankings, and they care about those numbers. They just can't believe them. If you're number one and everybody's saying you are, you can't accept that. You got to keep striving to get better. If you're ranked number 10 and you want to be ranked number one, you can't accept number 10. You got to keep striving and keep training and keep hungry there. So when the guys in the back create a unanimous dialogue that these rankings are off and they're not being followed anyway, that does have to be observed. But what do? You don't do away with the rankings. They're great. We're making content out of it right now. I mean, the rankings are very helpful in every sport, largely because they create controversy and they create a dialogue. But, secondly, I do understand if there's not a competitive architecture in place, like a bracket, like every other sport has, where there's a bracket and guys get seated and they're gonna go out and prove who's better and have some opportunity to do that, they do become a little bit tough. And so I get that argument. I get it on both sides. The rankings need to stay. Do we need to match guys up and have them have a little bit more worth? Yeah, sure we do.
All right, I want to backtrack to Vitor real quick. You miss maybe 3 or 4 fights a year, tops. And I said the same thing about Vitor this time as I did last time when he fought Mousasi. I said, man, he looked good. He looked good. He's fighting killers. So Vitor says, I'm going to fight one more time. It's not that I'm done, but man, I've been fighting killers for 15, 20 years. I'd like to keep competing. When are they going to have a Legends bracket? And I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think somewhere it would. I don't know if it's likely, that one of the top promotions are going to do that. It's tough. They're looking for contenders. And as soon as you say, hey, it's not me, I'm no longer a contender, I don't know if you have a place. I will pay money to watch Vitor Belfort pick up sticks in the park. I think he brings something to the table. I don't know what his record is in his last few fights. I don't think they've gone his way. I remember he beat Dan Henderson somewhere in there, and I don't think they've gone his way, particularly since the TRT ban came in. But he brings something to the table. He brings a look and an energy, and he brings something to the table. If Vitor's last fight really is his next one, that saddens me in many ways. That is the end of an era. And I'll tell you, diplomatically speaking, it's good marketing when a guy announces his last fight. There's something to tune in for there. There's something to watch. The politics in the back, you never send a guy out on top because there's no reason to. I'm not going to send a guy with a flame that he takes into a sunset. I'm going to make him pass that torch.